Alright there folks, and welcome to a bit of a view really. Let's face it, Football Manager 2018 is almost finished. We've probably got, 4 months to go before what we imagine Football Manager 2019 will be released. Not confirmed, but it never is at this stage, even though we all know what is likely to come. The game will surely come and be just a bit better than the last one. That seems to be the case. But last year was, or this year's version rather, Football Manager 2018. What did it do, and what did it do well, and what didn't it do well? It's got to be the best version of the game. Obviously, that's a given. You know, there's no way it's taking any steps back. But let's have a look at some of the main features that came into the game. Obviously, there's massive refinements every year. Player animations into the match engines. AI is improved. Transfer negotiations improved. All stuff, what you'd say, is under the hood. We'll never know what goes on in those kind of aspects. But let's take a look at some of the features that I feel are worth talking about. The dynamics was a big increase. It was a big feature for Football Manager 2019. Something I want to look at for the coming year is league changes. I'll explain when we get there. Needs no introduction. VAR. Tactical match briefings. Big feature apparently in Football Manager 2018. You tell me. The medical centre and training it's on the list of a lot of things that Football Manager perhaps could and should do better. There'll be many reasons behind why perhaps it's not, but let's delve a little bit deeper. And let's kick off with dynamics straight away. So dynamics is probably one of the features that was implemented that you've used the most. If you play Football Manager 2018, you'll know these screens. You've got your pyramid, your hierarchy, your team leaders, your highly influential players, and your other players. Now, you'll also be familiar with this screen, the social groups, and how these players fit together. In terms of relationships, player relationships have always been an aspect of Football Manager. Occasionally you have players who don't like each other. Whether it means you sell one or not is probably up to you. But dynamics, is it of interest? Does it actually mean anything? This on screen now is a Dortmund team that I'm managing, and we win everything. Literally everything. And the fact that we've got a few social groups, yes, we've got a good core, but there's no problem with the secondary social group A not mixing with secondary social group B, and others, just one player. So, does it actually mean anything? And of course, you have the player happiness screen, which, in my opinion, is just a little bit too much information going on at the same time. You know, if you look at I've snapped this straight from the game. For starters, your column headings are a little bit off, aren't they? You know, you've got it. Just for me, it is an Excel sheet. Excel Football Manager is, but well, a spreadsheet at least. But are those headings in the right place? You know, it just feels unfinished to me. I've never really used that particular screen. And as much as I like the aspects of social groups and dynamics in the hierarchy system, I don't really use that all that much. It's purely there for interest more than anything else. This bar that you have, which is the main area, I suppose, of dynamics, is of the most interest. It details dressing room atmospheres, match cohesion, and managerial support. Now, are these things that are obviously they're massively important and they give you an indicator of what's going on, but is it too powerful? Is it too powerful? You are the boss at the end of the day. Managerial support, you know, player power is a thing in football, but is it strong enough in the game or is it too strong? Has dynamics not really worked in Football Manager 2018 to the extent that it perhaps should do? Obviously, it's version probably 1 that they've released to the live, so Football Manager 2019 may see a complete departure from this system, an improvement in that regard. We shall see. I think it needs to be better. Training. Now, this is an interesting one. Training for me, training used to be better in game, and I'll come to that in a second. So this is what you do at the moment with training and Football Manager. This is essentially what you do. You have your coaches, and they're split between, you pick the areas that they coach in, and they're split generally between fitness, general, and goalkeeping. There's the specific aspects of those. You can strengthen aerobic for your fitness, tactics, ball control, defending, attacking, and shooting for general, and goalkeeping is literally shot stopping, handling, and distribution. You can set individual player instructions. This is individual instructions. What I mean by that is individual training regimes, sort of. So you can have a player that's focused on playing a certain way, certain role, learning a particular trait, learning a particular move, or forgetting a certain move perhaps. Do you really feel in control of your training? This screen gives you an overview of the last 52 weeks. You can see there my team, Dortmund, 100% balanced. We win everything. So, is it of interest? Is it useful? You've got a squad training happiness graph. I've got one unhappy player. I don't really know how to resolve that or if it's a problem. I don't know. It doesn't tell me there. I mean, I believe in-game I can click on that and it'll bring them up, but what do I do with it? How do these players are training? They usually complain about too much training. I mean, they're professional footballers. Do footballers generally complain about the amount of training that they have to do? I don't actually know. Probably they do. But in this bar as well, balanced average. And then a bar, literally a slider, is scheduling of your training. Is that enough? Is that too hands off? I don't know. Main focus, you pick from a few different options. So literally you're picking from 4 or 5 buttons, a slider and a few buttons. In Championship Manager 4, you used this kind of approach, and this is how I'd like to see it. There must be a reason that Sports Interactive moved away from this. Sports Interactive made Championship Manager 4, and it was the first major step forward after Championship Manager 3. I remember playing it and creating these training schedules that you may well remember. If you don't remember or you haven't played it, then obviously you won't. But you've got so much more control. You could pick from literally so many different options and make your own tailored training schedules. Whether or not it actually made a huge difference, who knows? I don't know what was under the hood in Championship Manager 4. But what I do know is you certainly felt that you were having more of an impact on your training by having players do different things. And you can see there it's breaking down how you're actually training in terms of mentals, physicals, defence, attack, and overall where the intensity level is. And you have different options to give players rests. Obviously, there must be a reason they moved away from that. But would it be nice to have a bit more control? I think it would be. I think the training overview as it is at the moment, and that's all I see it as, training is very loose. You manage in Football Manager, you do not coach. So would it be nice to go back to a bit of a coaching idea and coming up with something to do with actual training? I think it would be, and I think that's an area that they should really explore in FM19. Hopefully they do. The medical centre is a completely non-entity as far as I'm concerned. There are screens that I've loaded here that I very rarely have used, if at all. So at the moment, this is the main screen in the medical centre. It gives you an overview of each player and what kind of their match load and the injury susceptibility for each player. This next screen gives you further information. Essentially the same information, but it identifies how many games you've got in the next few days. It's information that you can figure out yourself. It's nice to pull it all together, but how useful is it? I don't think, if I want to know how many games I've got in the next week and how many games then, how long I have between the next game after that, I go to the fixture list. I don't go to the medical centre, Current injuries. Again, I look at my player screen. I don't go to a medical centre. I look at the squad screen. Maybe you're different. Maybe you do. This screen is interesting. It breaks down each player and the previous injuries that have gone on, and it shows you, obviously, you've got a nice graph as to see how many injuries you've got. But it's nice, and that's all it is. It's not actually useful. Knowing that you get more injuries in February as opposed to January, okay. what are you supposed to do with that information? If the information that you get from a particular feature is purely information for the sake of information, and you can't actually do anything with it, then what use is it in a game like Football Manager? I don't know. I really don't know. I would remove the medical centre entirely or overhaul it. This is a screen that you can get at any time, but you usually get this report at the end of the season, and it lists how long a player's or player, or your whole player, how long they've been unavailable for a particular season. So you can see there, Christian Larson has been unavailable so far for 29% of matches. You know, it highlights where you've got injury proneness, I suppose, but again, you know that. You know in your mind how often a player has been available. I don't know. I'd remove the medical centre because I think it's information that you don't need. Tactical briefings. This is an odd one. I had to manually go in and force this back on because I have this automatically set to assistance. I'm sure most people do too. I don't actually know what to do, and I think one of the screens contained in the tactical briefing, again, apologies if you use them religiously. Maybe it's just my way of playing. I don't at all understand it. This screen, current tactics, shows us where our strengths are, shows us where our weaknesses are, and shows us our good partnerships. That gives us a negative and a positive. Again, very nice. It looks colourful. It looks pretty. It looks nice on the eye. This screen shows us our tactic. You know, I'm a little bit unfamiliar. You talk to the team, or you can hand it over to the assistant manager, or skip the briefing entirely. Now, I don't know what, you know, it says that it's a fair, you can just see it, there is a fair overall mood in the room, but one or two players appear to be distracted. Who? What does that mean? Distracted by what? Why are they distracted? Why can't I talk to them and tell them not to be distracted? Who knows? And this is the screen that you actually do. If you talk to the players, you add scenarios, and oh my, that is a terrible screen in my opinion. That is an awfully boxy screen, scroll bars all over the place, and I play on big monitors, so it's nothing to do with resolution. I don't know what you do with this. I understand that you set game plans if you go 2 goals down, or you go behind, or you lose a lead, and you can move. You automatically set tactics to do that. But isn't that the whole idea of management? So you make these changes on the fly? I don't know. It just seems that this is a complete non-entity in my opinion. Tactical briefings don't work. I have the assistant do them all the time, and I don't notice anything to do. We certainly don't have any areas emphasised or anything like that. So move it on. Bin that off in my opinion. We don't need it. No one uses it. There we go. Right, changes. What can we do better in Football Manager 2019? One thing that needs to be covered is, like it or not, it's VAR. It's in football. It has to be in Football Manager. We've seen it at this year's World Cup. How will it be integrated into Football Manager? I don't know how they will integrate VAR, because how are you going to stop a computer game for a VAR? You know, it's going to be interesting to see what they decide to do. I'm sure they're running various different tests and have been for some time. Let's face it, Football Manager runs simulations better than nothing else. The Brexit scenarios, for example, which is something I'm going to mention in a minute. VAR is surely one of those. Surely they've got ideas going on about how VAR will work. There are very few decisions in Football Manager that, yes, referees do make mistakes in Football Manager, but is it to the point where I can just see a lot of rage just when I'm playing if VAR cancels out a goal or gives a penalty when the play's already continued. You know, and I'd be interested to see how it works. It needs to go in, and it's not a case of if, it's a case of when. It has to go in Football Manager 2019 because it is here. It is going to be in the Premier League, so it needs to be a factor. I think it's already used in Rome, obviously Roma, in Serie A, and I think it's going to be used in Bundesliga and Spanish La Liga as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly sure it's coming to the major leagues of Europe, so it needs to be implemented across the board for the match engine. I'm concerned that it might break a few things in the match engine, but that's going to be one to watch. It needs to go in, but we need to just keep an eye and see how that develops. And what have we got next? Well, it's league changes. Now, this is a little bit odd. League changes, what I mean by league changes, when things like this is the Premier League table, the first year of the Premier League. You'll notice it's not 20 teams as it is now, it's 22. It was reduced down to 20 teams, and obviously the remaining leagues, the next three divisions down, that's the Championship as it is now, and Sky Bet's League 1 and 2 became 24 teams apiece. What I mean by this is divisions in football, look at that, QPR in fifth, divisions in football change. Rules change, and in Football Manager there is an aspect to this, but it's not what I'm looking at. You can see there, World Cup expanding to 48 teams, no replays in FA Cup quarter-finals. I believe this season coming there's going to be no replays in FA Cups from the third round, so, and obviously the winter break as well. So there are league changes in football, rule changes in competition, not necessarily rule changes in the game. So we're not talking about yellow card automatic for diving, yellow card for this, red card for that. What we're talking about is league official rule changes, competition changes. So what's to stop Football Manager? And this is a bit like Brexit, the Brexit scenarios. There's quite a few in Football Manager, and they're random to your save. Similarly, I think Work the Space did a series on Gibraltar League, and a few people do that as well. If you get so successful in Gibraltar, the league develops and becomes so good, so powerful, that you actually get a TV deal worth many millions of pounds. That's written into the code of the game, and it's not that it actually is going to happen in X, Y, Z year. It's because you've actually achieved that. But what if, to make your save dynamic, to make everyone's save different, after a few years of playing the game, you're playing in England, you're managing, let's say, 17th there, Leeds United, you've managed to get promotion to the Premier League, and in 2027, suddenly the rule change comes into effect. The Premier League in-game announces, the FA announces, the English League announces that the Premier League will be expanded or reduced in terms of team size. Ooh. Suddenly, you've got a unique game and unique save. Probably not unique only to you, but different to a lot of other people. And you have to combat those changes. So what if, for example, again, you play in a league and suddenly they decide to do a split like they do in Scotland. There's so many different ways it could go. It's difficult to imagine the possibilities. It probably takes a lot of code, and there's probably sponsorship reasons, because a lot of the leagues are sponsored in, obviously, Football Manager. They're licensed divisions, so they have to probably remain as they are. But if Brexit is a simulation, Football Manager is a simulation, so why not have a simulation whereby leagues can change? I think that'd be exciting if you have a Premier League, for example, and suddenly it goes down to 18 teams and no winter break, and then they trial it, and after 5 years it doesn't work, so they go back to 20 teams. Or maybe they just try something else. They try a point for a score, an extra point for a score draw. There's so many different things that they could try. I think it'd just be interesting to see what kind of situations and scenarios Football Manager might flag up in that kind of play, So yeah, Football Manager 2019. Obviously, we've got no idea if it's coming out. We probably can be sure it will. We don't know what's going to be in it. I've got a few ideas, as I say, what I'd like to see in it. Probably a few of them won't. None of them will probably happen except VAR. A couple of the things of this year, this iteration, FM19, not quite as good as they perhaps could have been, but a lot of it is first attempt for live release. So we know they're working on it. The things that haven't worked, I say haven't worked in inverted commas, just haven't been as useful perhaps to me personally as other features that have come in the past. But that's me. You may use them all the time. You may go to that match briefing screen all the time. You may use that all the time. You may be straight in the medical centre whenever you want to see how heavy your next few weeks are. Fine. That's absolutely fine. Everybody plays Football Manager in a different way. I get that. But those are the features for me that just didn't really click this year for Football Manager 18, and I'd expect them to be developed, honed and refined for Football Manager 2019, if and when it comes. Let me know what you think in the comments. What do you think will be high on the hit list for you? What would, if you haven't bought Football Manager 2018, what would make you buy Football Manager 2019? And if you didn't buy Football Manager 2018, why not? Why didn't you buy Football Manager 2018? What's missing from the game? Was it not too dissimilar from Football Manager that you already own? You know, are you still playing a classic version of the game? Let me know. Do pop a like on there for me as well, and subscribe. We've got Football Manager 2018 content that'll continue right up until Football Manager 2019. Obviously, we've got many months to go, but it'll keep coming, even though a lot of people have probably put the game to bed now while they wait for the new season. But yeah, do let me know, as I say, and I'll see you again on my very next video. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, and goodbye.